Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Pillars of Sand. Leo Harmon stood at the window of his study, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and red. At 52, he had built a life many would envy. A successful construction company specializing in luxury developments, a sprawling estate in Seattle's affluent Medina neighborhood, and what he had once believed was a loving family. The warm glow of achievement, however, had begun to cool in recent years. His phone buzzed. A message from his daughter Bella. "Dad, getting super excited about tomorrow. Can't believe your little girl is getting married." Leo smiled. Despite the growing distance between him and his wife Gloria over the past 2 years, his children had remained his anchors. Bella, 24 and headstrong like him, had always been Daddy's little girl. Their son, Flynn, 22, was more reserved and had gravitated toward his mother's artistic sensibilities rather than Leo's pragmatic business mind. He typed back, "Wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart. Proudest day of my life." Setting down his phone, Leo poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and sank into his leather chair. The house felt unusually quiet. Gloria had mentioned something about final wedding preparations with her sister, Renee. Leo had offered to help, but was told everything was under control. That seemed to be the pattern lately. His offers of involvement politely declined, his presence increasingly peripheral. The distance had begun shortly after Flynn left for college. Without the children as buffers, Leo and Gloria had discovered an uncomfortable truth. They had little left to say to each other. The silences grew longer, the separate activities more frequent. Leo had thrown himself into expanding Harmon Construction, working longer hours, securing bigger contracts. Gloria had rekindled her passion for interior design, collaborating with an old friend from art school, Adam Kendall. Leo took a long sip of whiskey, the liquid warming his throat. Adam. Something about the man unsettled him, but he couldn't quite place it. They'd met at several dinner parties Gloria had insisted on hosting over the past year. Adam was divorced, charismatic, and seemed to make Gloria laugh in ways Leo hadn't managed in years. But Leo wasn't the jealous type, or so he told himself. His computer pinged with a notification. His head of operations, Barrett Leary, had sent the final contracts for the Riverside Heights project, a $40 million development that would cement Harmon Construction's reputation as the premier luxury builder in the Pacific Northwest. Barrett had been with Leo since the beginning, 25 years ago, when they were just 2 ambitious young men with tool belts and dreams. Now they employed over 200 people. Barrett was more than a colleague. He was family in ways that sometimes felt more reliable than blood. Leo's phone rang again. It was his mother, Wanda. "Leo, darling." Her voice crackled through the speaker. "Just checking you remembered to pick up your suit from the tailor's. You know how you get when you're in the middle of a big project." "Got it yesterday, Mom," Leo assured her. "Everything's ready for tomorrow." Good. Your father and I are so proud. First grandchild getting married. Who would have thought little Bella would beat us all to the altar?" Leo chuckled. "She knows what she wants. Always has." Like her father, Wanda said warmly, "We'll see you tomorrow then. Love you, son." "Love you too, Mom." As Leo hung up, he felt a momentary pang of unease. Something wasn't right. The house was too quiet, the preparations too smooth, his involvement too minimal. But he brushed it aside. Tomorrow was Bella's day, and nothing would spoil it. He didn't notice the calendar notification on his computer, moved from its original date to a week earlier. He didn't see the empty guest room where his parents should have been staying. And he certainly didn't hear Gloria's hushed phone conversation from the garden patio, her laughter floating on the evening air as she whispered, "It's all taken care of." He doesn't suspect a thing. Chapter 2, Shadows and Whispers. Morning arrived with an unusual stillness. Leo woke early, as was his habit, reaching across the king-size bed to find Gloria's side empty and cold. He checked his watch, 6:15 a.m. Unusual for her to be up before him, especially on such an important day. The smell of coffee drifted up from the kitchen. Leo pulled on his robe and headed downstairs, expecting to find his wife in her typical pre-event flurry. Instead, the kitchen was empty, the coffee pot set on automatic timer. A note sat on the marble island. Had to check on flowers. See you at the venue. Gee, Leo frowned. The ceremony wasn't until 4 p.m., and Gloria had assured him the florist had everything under control. He poured himself coffee, the unease from last night returning like a low-grade fever. His phone buzzed with a text from Barrett. Big day, boss. Want me to pick you up at 2? Sounds good, Leo replied. Thanks for having my back as always. He spent the morning reviewing the Riverside Heights contracts, making notes for Barrett about material suppliers and timelines. Work had always been his refuge, the place where things made sense, where effort yielded predictable results. Unlike family, unlike marriage. Around noon, Leo tried calling Gloria. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried Bella next, with the same result. Even Flynn's phone rang unanswered. Leo told himself not to worry. Wedding days were chaotic. Signals could be poor at the venue, a converted barn in wine country an hour outside Seattle. He dressed in his tailored suit, a deep charcoal gray that Gloria had once said brought out the silver in his still thick black hair. As he adjusted his tie, Leo caught himself in the mirror. The lines around his eyes had deepened in recent years, but he remained fit and imposing at 6'2". His grandfather had been Italian, giving him an olive complexion that didn't betray his age as quickly as some of his peers. The doorbell rang at precisely 2 p.m. Barrett stood on the doorstep, his own suit a shade lighter than Leo's, his expression uncharacteristically somber. Everything okay? Leo asked, immediately sensing something amiss. Barrett hesitated. Let's talk in the car. Once inside Barrett's Mercedes, the tension became palpable. Barrett gripped the steering wheel without starting the engine. What's going on? Leo demanded. Barrett took a deep breath. I wasn't going to say anything. Thought it wasn't my place. But you've been more than a boss to me, Leo. You're my brother in everything but blood. Just spit it out, Leo said, his voice tightening. I saw Gloria yesterday. With Adam Kendall. They were at the Fairmont, having lunch. But it looked intimate. Very intimate. Leo felt his jaw clench. You sure about this? Barrett nodded grimly. There's more. They were looking at property listings. I overheard enough to know they were talking about places in California. Gloria mentioned something about after everything is finalized. The pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. The distance, the separate activities, the hushed phone calls. Leo had built his company on attention to detail, yet had missed the signs of his own marriage crumbling. Take me to the venue, Leo said, his voice deceptively calm. Now, the drive was silent, Leo's mind racing through calculations and possibilities. He'd built his life methodically, brick by brick. He would not watch it demolished without understanding why, and by whom. When they arrived at the rustic venue, Whispering Pines Ranch, something seemed off immediately. The parking lot was nearly empty, with only a few maintenance vehicles present. No florist vans, no caterers, no wedding guests. Leo strode toward the main building, a renovated barn with soaring ceilings and exposed beams. The doors were unlocked, but the space was empty. No chairs, no altar, no decorations. Nothing to suggest a wedding was happening in mere hours. A groundskeeper was sweeping the polished concrete floors. Excuse me, Leo called. Where is everyone? The Harmon Crawford wedding is today at 4. The man looked confused. Harmon Crawford? That was last weekend, sir. Beautiful ceremony. Leo felt as if the ground had suddenly vanished beneath his feet. That's impossible. My daughter is getting married today. I'm her father. The groundskeeper's expression shifted from confusion to discomfort. I'm sorry, sir. I worked that wedding myself. It was definitely last Saturday. Leo's phone was in his hand before he consciously reached for it. He pulled up Bella's message from yesterday. Dad, getting super excited about tomorrow. The date stamp. He checked the date stamp. The message was from a week ago Friday. With robotic movements, Leo opened his photo gallery. There are no recent pictures of Bella in a wedding dress, no family photos from a rehearsal dinner. His finger hovered over his Instagram app, which he rarely used except to post major family events. Barrett placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Leo, maybe we should. But Leo was already opening the app, already searching for Bella's profile, already scrolling through the flood of images posted 6 days ago. His daughter in a white dress, radiant and beautiful. Gloria in mother of the bride blue, tearing up. Flynn giving a toast, glass raised. Leo's parents flanking the bride, beaming with pride. The entire wedding party, laughing under string lights as dusk settled. And not a single photo with Leo in it. Not one. His phone rang, startling him out of his stunned trance. Gloria's name flashed on the screen. "Where are you?" he answered, his voice unnaturally controlled. "Leo, darling," Gloria sounded surprised. "I'm at home. Where are you?" "I'm at Whispering Pines. For our daughter's wedding." A long pause. Then, "Oh, Leo, you need to come home. We need to talk. About the wedding I wasn't invited to, or about you and Adam house hunting in California." Another silence. "Come home, Leo. Please." As Barrett drove him back to Medina, Leo sat in perfect stillness, like a statue hewn from ice. His mind, normally filled with plans and calculations, had gone terrifyingly quiet. One thought emerged from the silence, crystalline in its clarity. Someone would pay for this. Everyone would pay for this. He just needed time to ensure they paid in full. Chapter 3. Ashes in the Mouth. Leo entered his home with the careful precision of a man crossing a minefield. The grand foyer, with its sweeping staircase and crystal chandelier, suddenly seemed like a movie set, beautiful but hollow, lacking substance beneath the polished surface. Gloria waited in the living room, perched on the edge of the cream-colored sofa they'd purchased on their 15th anniversary. Next to her sat Flynn, looking uncomfortable in pressed chinos and a blue button-down. Across from them, in matching armchairs, were Leo's parents, Walter and Wanda Harmon, their expressions a mixture of guilt and apprehension. No sign of Bella. Or Adam Kendall. "Where's our daughter?" Leo asked, his voice level. Gloria's eyes were red-rimmed, but Leo couldn't tell if it was from tears or lack of sleep. "She and Curtis left for their honeymoon in Bali yesterday. 10 days. Curtis Crawford." The name registered dimly in Leo's mind. Bella's boyfriend of 3 years, a software engineer at some tech company. Seemed like a decent young man the few times they'd met. Now he was Leo's son-in-law, and Leo hadn't even been present to shake his hand at the altar. "Sit down, son," Walter said, gesturing to the empty space beside Gloria. Leo remained standing. "I think I'll stay on my feet for this particular family meeting." Gloria twisted her wedding ring, a 3-carat diamond set in platinum that Leo had upgraded on their 20th anniversary. "We need to explain." "Yes," Leo agreed coldly. "You do." Flynn cleared his throat. "Dad, this isn't easy for any of us." "Quiet," Leo cut him off. "You haven't earned the right to speak yet." Wanda winced. "Leo, please. We're still family." "Are we?" Leo looked around at the faces he'd loved and trusted. Because family doesn't erase someone from a milestone like their daughter's wedding. Family doesn't lie and manipulate. So please enlighten me. What exactly are we? Gloria stood, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her linen pants. The wedding date was moved up because Curtis got a major promotion that requires relocation to Singapore. It was very sudden. We tried to reach you, but you were in Portland for that big contract signing. You weren't answering calls. Leo laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. I was in Portland for exactly 6 hours. The rest of the time, I was right here, working from home, completely reachable. Try again. Flynn looked at his shoes. Walter studied his hands. Wanda dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The truth, Gloria, Leo demanded. For once. Gloria's composure cracked slightly. The truth is that Bella didn't want you there. None of us did. The words landed like body blows, but Leo didn't flinch. Go on. You haven't really been present in this family for years, Leo, Gloria continued, gaining momentum. You're physically here, but mentally? You're always at work, always calculating, always planning the next project. Do you know that you missed Flynn's college graduation dinner because you were on the phone with a supplier? That you forgot my 50th birthday entirely? that you've never once asked Bella what she wanted for her future, only assumed she'd be happy with what you wanted for her. So this was what a punishment, Leo asked quietly. It was a decision to have one perfect day without walking on eggshells around your mood, your schedule, your priorities, Gloria replied. One day where we could just be happy without wondering if you'd actually be mentally present or just checking your phone every 5 minutes. Leo turned to Flynn. And you agree with this? Flynn finally looked up, a mixture of defiance and shame in his eyes. You don't even know what I'm studying in my master's program, Dad. You still think I'm doing business administration. I switched to art history a year ago. And you too. Leo addressed his parents. What's your excuse? Walter sighed heavily. We love you, son, but we've watched you become someone we don't recognize. Someone cold. Someone who measures everything in dollars and cents, even relationships. So you all conspired to teach me a lesson, Leo concluded. It wasn't like that, Wanda protested. No. Leo arched an eyebrow. Then why the elaborate deception? The fake text messages? The calendar manipulation? Why not just tell me to my face that I wasn't wanted at my own daughter's wedding? Silence fell over the room. Outside, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Seattle skyline sparkled in the distance. The Space Needle illuminated against the darkening sky. There's one more thing, Gloria said finally. I want a divorce. Leo nodded, as if he'd been expecting this. Of course you do. And I'm guessing Adam Kendall has been very supportive during this difficult decision. Gloria flushed. Adam has nothing to do with this. Please don't insult what little remains of our relationship by lying about the obvious, Leo said wearily. Barrett saw you house hunting in California with him. It's not what you think, Gloria began. It never is, Leo cut her off. Here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to go upstairs, pack some essentials, and check into a hotel. You have 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live. The divorce attorneys can sort out the rest. This is my home too, Gloria protested. The deed is in my name alone, Leo reminded her. As is your car, your credit cards, and the vacation property in Maui. I suggest you use the 2 weeks wisely. Flynn stood up. Dad, you can't just. I can and I will, Leo stated with finality. You all made a choice. Now you get to live with the consequences. As Leo turned to leave, Walter called after him. Son, we can work this out. As a family. Leo paused at the threshold. We're not a family anymore. We're just people who used to know each other. Upstairs in the master bedroom, Leo methodically packed a suitcase with enough clothes for a week. His movements were precise, his breathing controlled. Only when he entered Bella's old room, now a guest room that still held traces of her childhood. Gymnastics trophies, framed photos of father and daughter fishing trips, a stuffed bear he'd won for her at a carnival when she was 7. Did his composure slip? He picked up a photo from her nightstand. It showed Leo teaching a 10-year-old Bella how to use a power drill, both wearing matching safety goggles, both laughing. He slipped the picture into his suitcase. By the time Leo descended the stairs, the living room was empty. He could hear muffled voices from the kitchen. His family, already moving on with their lives, already adapting to his absence. It had been so easy for them to erase him once. They had no idea how permanent that erasure would become. Leo texted Barrett, "Need a favor. Can you meet me at the Olympic?" The response came immediately, "On my way." "You okay?" Leo didn't answer. He wasn't okay. He might never be okay again, but he would be something else, something his family had never seen coming. As he walked out the front door of the home he'd built with his own hands, Leo didn't look back. The Leo Harmon who had entered that house was gone, incinerated in the flames of betrayal. From those ashes, something new and terrible was emerging, something with only one purpose. Retribution. Chapter 4. Blueprints of Revenge. The Olympic Hotel's penthouse suite offered an unobstructed view of Elliott Bay, the water a slate gray under the cloudy morning sky. Leo stood at the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching a ferry make its slow journey toward Bainbridge Island. He'd slept remarkably well for a man whose life had imploded, a dreamless, deep slumber that had left him clear-headed and focused. Barrett arrived with breakfast and coffee, placing the paper bag on the suite's dining table. Thought you might not feel like going down to the restaurant. Leo turned from the window, thoughtful as always. Thank you. They sat across from each other, steam rising from paper cups of strong black coffee. Barrett studied his friend and employer carefully. You're calmer than I expected. Anger clouds judgment, Leo replied, taking a deliberate bite of his breakfast sandwich. And I need absolute clarity for what comes next. Barrett nodded slowly. Which is? First, information. I need to understand exactly what happened, who knew what, and when. Then, containment, securing my assets and limiting the damage to the company. Finally, response. You mean revenge, Barrett clarified. Leo's expression remained impassive. I mean justice. They chose to excise me from their lives. I'm simply going to honor that choice, completely and irrevocably. Barrett had known Leo long enough to recognize the steel beneath the calm exterior. What do you need from me? I need you to be my eyes and ears. Gloria will be leaving the house within 2 weeks. I want to know where she goes, who she contacts. Same for Flynn. My parents will probably return to their condo in Florida, but keep tabs on their communications with Gloria, if possible. And Bella. A flicker of something, pain, perhaps, crossed Leo's face before disappearing. Let her have her honeymoon. When she returns, she'll find her world dramatically changed. For now, focus on Gloria and Flynn. Barrett hesitated. Leo, about the renovations. Leo's attention sharpened. What renovations? The Medina house. Gloria mentioned to me last month that you'd approved major renovations while Bella was on her honeymoon. Something about surprising her when she returned. The contractors are scheduled to start next week. Leo set down his coffee. I approved no such thing. Barrett winced. That's what I thought. The price tag is significant, close to $1 million. Gloria said you'd already arranged financing through the company. A cold smile spread across Leo's face. Did she now? How convenient that I supposedly approved this massive expenditure right before she asked for a divorce. Want me to cancel the contractors? Leo considered this for a moment. No. Let's see what happens when the bills come due and the money isn't there. I'm curious about how she planned to handle that particular detail. Leo spent the morning on his laptop, methodically reviewing financial records, property deeds, and company accounts. By noon, he had transferred significant assets to newly created holdings, changed passwords on joint accounts, and contacted his attorney to begin divorce proceedings. His phone buzzed with a text from Flynn. Dad, can we talk? Just us? Leo ignored it. Another text followed. I'm sorry about everything. I wanted to tell you. Again, Leo didn't respond. Then his phone rang. Gloria. The credit cards aren't working, she said without preamble when he answered. How unfortunate, Leo replied mildly. Leo, this is childish. I have expenses. Not my concern anymore, he cut her off. You have 2 weeks to vacate the house. I suggest you focus on that rather than shopping. The renovations are scheduled to begin on Monday, Gloria said, her voice tight. The contractors need the deposit by tomorrow. Leo allowed himself a small smile. What renovations would those be, Gloria? A pause. The ones we discussed. For the master's suite and kitchen. Interesting. I don't recall this discussion. Leo, this isn't funny. It's a signed contract. Then I suggest you find a way to pay for it, Leo replied. Or cancel it. Either way, it's your problem, not mine. He ended the call and turned to Barrett, who had been listening while reviewing project documents. Phase 1 begins. Now we need to understand what Adam Kendall's role is in all this. Barrett nodded. I've got a friend in commercial real estate who knows him. I'll make some calls. By evening, the picture had become clearer. Adam Kendall was more than Gloria's interior design partner. He was a failed architect whose business had tanked during the recession. He'd reinvented himself as a designer to the wealthy, using his connections and charm to rebuild his finances. He specialized in helping wealthy women reimagine their spaces, which often coincided with them reimagining their marriages. He's done this before, Barrett reported, showing Leo an online article about a messy divorce involving one of Adam's previous clients. Gets close to unhappy wives, encourages them to invest in massive renovations. Then when the husband balks, he's there to offer sympathy and support. 3 of his last 5 clients ended up divorced within a year of their home transformation projects. Leo processed this information. And the renovations? What happens to those? Usually abandoned halfway through when the financing falls apart. In one case, he actually bought the property at a distressed price after the divorce was finalized. So he's a predator, Leo concluded. And Gloria is his willing prey. Barrett hesitated. There's one more thing. According to my real estate contact, Adam recently listed his Seattle condo. He's moving to Santa Barbara, where he and Gloria were looking at properties. Leo nodded thoughtfully. So that's the plan. Divorce me. Use the settlement to start fresh in California with Adam. Seems likely, Barrett agreed. Leo stood and walked back to the window. The bay was dark now, the lights of West Seattle twinkling in the distance. Where's Flynn staying? With a friend in Capitol Hill. Artist type named Diego. And my parents? Moved their flight back to Florida to tomorrow morning. Leo nodded. Good. Now I need you to do something that might make you uncomfortable. Barrett raised an eyebrow. More uncomfortable than spying on your family? I need you to approach Gloria. Tell her you're concerned about my mental state. That I've been making erratic business decisions. That you're worried about the company. Why would I do that? Leo turned, his expression calculating. Because she'll believe you're trying to protect your own interests. She knows your life is tied to Harmon Construction. She'll think you're looking for an ally to help control the situation. Barrett understood immediately. You want me to be your Trojan horse. Precisely. Find out what she and Adam are really planning. See how deep this betrayal goes. Barrett looked troubled. And then what? Leo's expression hardened. Then I take everything from them. Not just money or property, everything that matters. The way they took what mattered from me. As night fell over Seattle, Leo Harmon stood alone in the penthouse, his reflection ghostly in the darkened window. The hurt had calcified into something hard and cold, a diamond formed under the extreme pressure of betrayal. He would use that diamond to cut through the lies, to sever the bonds that had once tethered him to people who had proven themselves unworthy. He thought of his daughter's wedding, taking place without him. He thought of his son's silent complicity. He thought of his parents' betrayal. And most of all, he thought of Gloria and Adam, planning their new life together while orchestrating his exclusion. They had expected him to rage, to lash out immediately. They didn't understand that his true talent had always been building, constructing something solid, something enduring, something inescapable. His revenge would be no different. Chapter 5. Foundations of Wrath. The renovation crew arrived at the Medina house exactly as scheduled on Monday morning. Gloria greeted them with coffee and pastries, her charm offensive in full swing despite the anxiety gnawing at her insides. The credit cards remained frozen. Her calls to Leo went unanswered, and the contractors expected their deposit today. My husband's handling the payment, she assured the foreman, a burly man named Dwayne. Just a bit of a mix-up with the accounts. Should be sorted by this afternoon. Dwayne nodded skeptically. We can start the demo work today, but we'll need that deposit before we order any materials, Mrs. Harmon. Of course, Gloria said brightly. And please, call me Gloria. As the crew began setting up dust barriers in the kitchen, Gloria retreated to the sunroom and called Adam. They're here, she said quietly. But there's no money. Adam's voice was reassuringly smooth. Don't panic. This is just Leo flexing his muscles. He'll calm down and release the funds. You don't know him like I do, Gloria replied. When Leo decides something, it's carved in stone. Everyone has their price, Adam countered. Or their weakness. We just need to find his. His weakness was Bella, and we've already used that card, Gloria said bitterly. Now he'll never forgive any of us. He doesn't need to forgive. He just needs to pay. After hanging up, Gloria paced the sunroom. Her reflection multiplied in the glass walls that overlooked the manicured garden. Everything had seemed so clear a week ago. The wedding would proceed without Leo. She would ask for the divorce. The renovation would begin, and by the time the dust settled, she'd have a generous settlement and a fresh start with Adam in California. But she had underestimated Leo's capacity for calculated response. He hadn't yelled or threatened or begged. He had simply disappeared taking with him access to the financial resources she'd counted on. A text message notification broke her reverie. Barrett Leary, can we meet? Concern about Leo and the company. Gloria read the message twice. Barrett had always been Leo's right hand, his most trusted lieutenant. If he was reaching out, the situation must be dire indeed. Cafe Louisa, 2 p.m.? She replied. See you there, came the immediate response. While Gloria navigated her crumbling plans, Leo was ensconced in a temporary office Barrett had arranged in a nondescript building in Georgetown, an industrial district south of downtown. The space was utilitarian but functional, with basic furniture and excellent security. Leo had spent the morning conferring with his attorney, Russell Keene, a razor-sharp divorce lawyer known for representing high-net-worth clients. The good news, Russell said, reviewing documents spread across the conference table, is that Washington is a community property state with some significant exceptions. Your business was established before the marriage and has been maintained as a separate entity. The Medina house, however, would typically be considered community property despite being in your name. Leo nodded. And the renovation contract? Russell frowned. If you can prove you didn't authorize it, she's liable for the debt. But it could get messy. Messy is acceptable. Losing is not. There's something else we need to discuss, Russell said, his expression grave. Your daughter's trust fund. Leo stiffened. When Bella was born, he had established a trust fund in her name, adding to it consistently over the years. It now contained nearly $2 million, with Leo as the trustee until Bella turned 30. What about it? There was an attempt to access it last month. The request was denied because it lacked your signature, but someone submitted paperwork to transfer trusteeship to Gloria. Leo's face darkened. Who submitted the paperwork? Russell consulted his notes. The request came from Walter Harmon, with Gloria as co-signatory. My father, Leo said flatly. My own father tried to remove me as trustee of my daughter's fund. The request included a statement suggesting you were making questionable financial decisions and that the trust needed protection. Leo's laugh was devoid of mirth. How convenient. And when exactly was this filed? 3 weeks ago, shortly before the wedding date change. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about a wedding or a divorce. This was a coordinated effort to isolate him, remove him from both his family and his money. The question was why, and how far they were willing to go. Lock everything down, Leo instructed. Every account, every asset, every property. Nothing moves without my direct authorization. And Russell, find out who else was involved in this attempt. I want names. After Russell departed, Leo turned his attention to the Riverside Heights project, the major development that had been consuming his attention before his world imploded. The contract was signed, the financing secured, but actual construction hadn't begun. An idea began to form, a way to use the project as both shield and sword. His phone buzzed with a text from Barrett. Meeting Gloria at 2. Any specific questions you want answered? Leo thought carefully before responding. Find out who else knows about the trust fund maneuver. And ask about the renovation without revealing you know it's unauthorized. Let her think you might help finance it through the company, if necessary. Barrett's response was immediate. Understood. We'll report back by 4. Leo spent the next hour reviewing the Riverside Heights plans, making notes and adjustments. The project was his company's most ambitious yet, a 60-unit luxury development with commanding views of both the Cascade Mountains and downtown Seattle. If executed properly, it would elevate Harmon Construction to the top tier of development firms on the West Coast. At precisely 2 p.m., Barrett slid into a seat across from Gloria at Cafe Louisa, a quiet establishment known for its discretion and clientele of affluent professionals. Thank you for meeting me, Barrett began, his tone carefully calibrated to convey concern without alarm. Gloria stirred her latte nervously. Of course. You said you're worried about Leo. Barrett nodded gravely. He's making decisions I don't recognize. Pulling money from operational accounts, canceling meetings with major investors, even talking about scrapping the Riverside Heights project entirely. Gloria's eyes widened. Riverside Heights represented years of planning and millions in potential profit. That doesn't sound like Leo. It's not, Barrett agreed. Which is why I'm concerned this divorce situation might be affecting his judgment. The company could suffer irreparable damage. Gloria leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting, Barrett? I need to stabilize the company while Leo works through this. But I need allies. People who understand what's at stake. And you think I'm such an ally? Gloria asked skeptically. Leo has already frozen me out financially. Barrett looked appropriately sympathetic. Which puts you in a difficult position with the renovation contract, I imagine. Gloria's face tightened almost imperceptibly. You know about that? Leo mentioned it might be a point of contention, Barrett said carefully. A significant financial commitment at an interesting time. It was approved months ago, Gloria insisted. Leo's just being vindictive now. Barrett nodded thoughtfully. The timing is certainly challenging. First the wedding date change, then the divorce announcement, now this renovation issue. The wedding date was Bella's decision, Gloria said defensively. She and Curtis got this incredible opportunity in Singapore, and everything had to be moved up. Leo was simply unavailable. Unavailable, Barrett repeated, despite being home every evening that week. Gloria flushed. It was complicated. Family dynamics you wouldn't understand. Perhaps, Barrett conceded, just as I might not understand the trust fund situation. Gloria froze. What trust fund situation? Barrett affected surprise. Oh, I assumed you knew. The paperwork that was filed to transfer Bella's trust fund management. Leo was quite upset about it. Gloria's hands trembled slightly as she set down her cup. That was Walter's idea. He was concerned about Leo's state of mind recently. And you supported this concern? I signed the paperwork, yes. It was a precautionary measure, nothing more. Barrett nodded slowly. I see. And was this before or after the wedding date change was decided? Before, Gloria admitted after a pause. But the two aren't related. Of course not, Barrett agreed smoothly. Just as the renovation plans and your discussions with Adam Kendall about California properties aren't related to the divorce. Gloria's facade cracked. Who told you about that? Seattle's a small town in certain circles, Barrett replied. People notice things. The tension between them stretched into silence. Finally, Gloria spoke, her voice low and intense. What do you really want, Barrett? Stability for the company. Protection for my own interests. And perhaps an arrangement that could benefit us both during this transition. What kind of arrangement? Barrett leaned closer. I could potentially help with the renovation funding, channeled through the company as a pre-divorce settlement advance. In exchange, I need information about what's really happening with this family situation and assurance that the company's projects won't be collateral damage in your personal war with Leo. Gloria studied him intently. And Leo wouldn't know about this arrangement. Leo has excluded me from major decisions for the first time in 25 years, Barrett said, allowing genuine concern to color his voice. I'm looking out for myself now, just as you are. The calculation was visible in Gloria's eyes, weighing trust against necessity, suspicion against desperation. Finally, she nodded. I need $250,000 by Friday for the first phase of renovations. If you can arrange that, we have a deal. I'll see what I can do, Barrett promised. But I'll need something from you first. A complete picture of what's really going on, including who else is involved in this restructuring of Leo's life. By the time their meeting concluded, Barrett had extracted far more than Gloria realized she had given. Names, dates, plans, and most importantly, the truth behind the wedding deception and trust fund maneuver. The picture it painted was darker than even Leo had suspected. When Barrett returned to the Georgetown office that afternoon, Leo was still working on the Riverside Heights plans, his focus intense and unwavering. You were right, Barrett announced without preamble. It goes deeper than we thought. Leo looked up, his eyes cold. Tell me, Adam Kendall isn't just Gloria's lover. He's been systematically targeting your family for over a year. The house renovations, the California move, even the wedding date change, all part of a coordinated plan. To what end? Barrett sat heavily. Money primarily. Adam's deeply in debt, gambling problems, failed investments. He's been working an angle with Gloria for months, convincing her that you're emotionally detached financially controlling, even potentially unstable. And my father's involvement with the trust fund? Adam convinced Gloria to approach your parents with concerns about your mental state, suggested that your workaholic tendencies might be symptoms of a deeper problem. Walter was reluctant initially, but Wanda pushed him to act for Bella's protection. Leo absorbed this information without visible reaction. And Flynn, manipulated but less involved. Adam cultivated him separately, positioning himself as the understanding father figure who appreciated Flynn's artistic ambitions, unlike his rigid, disapproving real father. "And my daughter?" Leo asked, his voice finally betraying a hint of emotion. "Was she manipulated too? Or did she choose to exclude me from her wedding of her own free will?" Barrett hesitated. "That's less clear. According to Gloria, Bella was genuinely upset about you missing several pre-wedding events due to work." Adam and Gloria apparently enhanced this narrative, suggesting that you might take over the wedding with your opinions and money if given the chance. Leo nodded slowly, processing this betrayal within betrayal. "So Adam orchestrated my removal from my own family to position himself for financial gain through Gloria." "It appears so," Barrett confirmed. "And he nearly succeeded. If the wedding and divorce had gone as planned, if the renovations had proceeded, if the trust fund transfer had been approved, you would have been neatly excised from your family's life while they accessed your money through various channels." Leo's expression hardened into something Barrett had never seen before, a cold, implacable determination that seemed to transform his features. "They chose to make me a ghost," Leo said quietly. "Now I'll show them what a ghost can do." Chapter 6. Laying the Snare. As Seattle's autumn rain lashed against the windows of his Georgetown office, Leo meticulously assembled the pieces of his counterstrike. 3 days had passed since Barrett's meeting with Gloria, 3 days of careful planning and strategic maneuvers that had gone entirely unnoticed by his targets. "The timing needs to be perfect," Leo explained to Barrett, who sat across the desk reviewing a complex flowchart of actions and contingencies. "Each element depends on the others being in place. If we move too quickly or too slowly, the entire structure fails." Barrett nodded, studying the diagram. "It's like one of your buildings. Every beam, every support, precisely calculated. Except this structure is designed to collapse," Leo replied coldly. "But only after everyone is inside." The plan Leo had devised was elegant in its conception, but brutal in its consequences. It began with a seemingly benevolent gesture, the release of funds for the home renovation. "You're going to pay for the renovations, after all?" Barrett asked, surprised. Leo's smile was thin. "In a manner of speaking, the funds will come from Harmon Construction as a company investment in a showcase property. Gloria will believe you arranged it as promised. Adam will believe his plan is back on track. The contractors will get their deposit and begin work. And the catch. The funds are structured as a business loan to Gloria personally, secured by her portion of the community property. Every dollar spent increases her debt to the company. My company, not to me personally. A subtle but critical distinction in divorce proceedings." Barrett whistled softly. "She'll be building herself into a financial hole without realizing it." "Precisely. And while that's happening, I'll be meeting with Curtis's father." Barrett raised an eyebrow. "Bella's new father-in-law? Why?" "Malcolm Crawford owns Cascade Technologies. They're bidding on the commercial space component of Riverside Heights. I'm going to offer him an exclusive deal, at terms so favorable he can't possibly refuse." Understanding dawned on Barrett's face. "You're creating a business alliance with your daughter's new family." "Family supports family," Leo said with a hint of bitterness. "Let's see how the Crawfords respond when they realize that their son's in-laws have effectively erased his wife's father from the most important day of her life." The next phase of Leo's plan involved Flynn. Through carefully planted information, Leo arranged for his son to learn that his art school tuition payments, which Leo had always handled directly, were suddenly at risk due to financial restructuring following the separation. "But you're not actually going to cut off his education, are you?" Barrett asked. "Of course not," Leo replied. "The tuition will be paid, as always. But Flynn will spend at least a week believing his future is in jeopardy. He'll panic, try to reach me, receive no response. He'll turn to Gloria, who will have no answers. He'll stew in the consequences of his choices. For Walter and Wanda Harmon, Leo had reserved a special form of retribution. Through Russell, his attorney, he initiated an audit of the family business that had been passed down to Leo years ago, but still provided his parents with a comfortable retirement income. They'll receive formal notice of the audit tomorrow, Leo explained. Every transaction, every distribution, every decision they've made in their capacity as minority stakeholders will be scrutinized. They'll believe it's routine until the auditors begin asking very specific questions about certain decisions made around the time of the wedding and trust fund incident. Barrett looked concerned. You going to financially ruin your own parents? Leo's expression remained impassive. I'm going to remind them that actions have consequences. The audit will find nothing actionable. I've made sure of that. But they'll live with the fear and uncertainty for months. Just as I now live with the knowledge that my own parents conspired to excise me from my daughter's wedding and my granddaughter's trust fund. The most devastating component of Leo's plan, however, was reserved for Adam Kendall. Through a series of shell companies, Leo had begun systematically purchasing Adam's outstanding debts, gambling markers from casinos, personal loans, credit card balances. Where debts couldn't be purchased, new lines of credit were extended through seemingly unrelated entities. By the end of the month, Leo explained, I will effectively own every dollar of Adam Kendall's considerable debt. He won't know it, of course. The collection agencies will continue to operate as normal for now. And later, Barrett asked, later, when everything else is in place, all debts will come due simultaneously. No extensions, no negotiations, no mercy. The final piece of Leo's design targeted Gloria directly. Using Barrett as the conduit, Leo arranged for Gloria to receive an apparently confidential tip about the Riverside Heights project, specifically that environmental concerns had been discovered that might tank the development and, by extension, Harmon Construction's financial future. She'll believe the company is on the verge of collapse, Leo predicted. She'll accelerate her divorce proceedings, trying to secure a settlement before the supposed environmental issues become public knowledge. Which plays right into your hands, Barrett concluded. Directly into the trap, Leo confirmed. Because her attorney will insist on a full valuation of Harmon Construction as part of the divorce. A valuation that will reveal the company is not only solvent, but poised for unprecedented growth due to the Riverside Heights project and the Crawford partnership. Barrett sat back, absorbing the scope of Leo's revenge. What about Bella? You haven't mentioned how she figures into this. Leo's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Bella will return from her honeymoon to find her family in disarray. Her mother facing financial ruin, her brother's education in apparent jeopardy, her grandparents under investigation, and her father, the man she chose to exclude from the most important day of her life, emerging as the wrong party who nevertheless controls everyone's fate. You think she'll understand why you've done this? Understanding isn't required, Leo said quietly. Only recognition of the truth. That choices have consequences, that betrayal begets destruction, that the foundations we build our lives upon must be solid, or everything collapses. As the rain intensified outside, drumming against the windows with increasing fury, Leo turned to a set of architectural drawings. The original plans for the Medina house he had designed and built for his family 15 years earlier. Tell the renovation crew to proceed according to these modified plans, he instructed Barrett, sliding across a sealed envelope. They're to tell Gloria these changes came directly from me as a reconciliation gesture. The alterations look minor, but will require opening up several key walls and structural elements. Barrett took the envelope cautiously. What exactly am I giving them? Leo's smile was cold. The means to destroy the house from within, one renovation at a time. By the time they're finished, the place will be architecturally compromised beyond repair. Beautiful on the surface, rotting underneath. Rather like my marriage. Barrett studied his friend and employer with growing concern. Leo, this is comprehensive. Are you sure this is what you want? Once this is set in motion. It already is in motion, Leo interrupted. It was set in motion the moment they decided I was expendable. I'm simply ensuring that the structure of consequences is built to my specifications, not theirs. Outside, lightning flashed across the Seattle skyline, briefly illuminating Leo's face in stark relief. A man transformed by betrayal. His features hardened into something unrecognizable from the father and husband he had once been. The architect of vengeance was ready to break ground. Chapter 7. The First Tremors. 1 month after Leo's disappearance from his family's life, the first tremors of his carefully engineered revenge began to register. Like a sequence of controlled demolition charges, each detonation was precisely timed and targeted for maximum effect. Flynn Harmon was the first to feel the ground shift beneath his feet. On a rainy Tuesday morning, he received an email from the registrar's office at his art school. Final notice. Payment required for continued enrollment. According to the message, his tuition for the current semester remained unpaid, with a deadline of Friday for resolution before administrative withdrawal would be processed. Panic bloomed in Flynn's chest. His father had always handled the tuition payments directly, an arrangement Flynn had both resented for its implication of dependency and appreciated for its convenience. Now, with his parents separated and his father seemingly vanished from their lives, the financial reality of his situation struck with brutal force. Flynn immediately called Gloria, who was supervising the ongoing renovations at the Medina house. "Mom, did you know Dad stopped paying my tuition?" he demanded without preamble. Gloria stepped away from the construction noise into the relative quiet of the backyard patio. "What? No, that can't be right. He wouldn't do that." "Well, he did," Flynn snapped. "I just got a final notice. I have 3 days before they kick me out." Gloria closed her eyes, feeling the weight of yet another crisis. The renovations had resumed thanks to the mysterious company funding Barrett had arranged, but everything else was falling apart. The credit cards remained frozen, the divorce proceedings had turned ugly, and now this. "How much is needed?" she asked wearily. $22,000, Flynn replied. "For this semester alone." The sum hung between them like an accusation. Gloria had less than $5,000 in her personal account. All that remained of the cash advances she'd taken before Leo froze the credit cards. "I'll figure something out," she promised hollowly. "Have you tried calling your father?" Flynn's laugh was bitter. "Every day for the past month. He doesn't answer, doesn't return messages. It's like he's dead to us. Or we're dead to him," Gloria murmured. After hanging up, Gloria tried calling Leo herself, reaching his voicemail as expected. Then she called Adam, who had become increasingly distant as the financial complications mounted. "Adam, we have another problem," she began when he answered. His sigh was audible. "What now?" "Leo stopped paying Flynn's tuition. $22,000 due by Friday, or he's out of school." "That's unfortunate," Adam replied carefully, "but not entirely unexpected, given the circumstances." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you all made a decision to exclude Leo from a significant family event. Actions have consequences, Gloria." She felt a chill at his tone. "I thought you understood why we did that. You encouraged it, if I recall correctly." "I offered perspective based on what you told me about Leo's emotional disengagement," Adam corrected. "The decision was ultimately yours and your family's." The subtle distancing wasn't lost on Gloria. "But you're saying we deserve what's happening?" "I'm saying we need to be realistic about the situation. Leo is clearly methodically responding to what he perceives as betrayal. My concern is how far he's willing to go." "What about the house in Santa Barbara?" Gloria pressed. "Is that still happening?" Adam paused. "Let's focus on getting through the current situation before making additional plans. I need to go. I have clients waiting." As Adam ended the call, Gloria stood alone on the patio, watching the renovation crew gut what had once been her perfect kitchen. The house that had been her haven was now unrecognizable. Walls removed, floors torn up, dust everywhere. Much like her life. Inside, the renovation foreman, Dwayne, was reviewing the modified plans that had arrived via Barrett last week. The changes were extensive despite being presented as minor adjustments. removing a load-bearing wall to open up the space, relocating plumbing fixtures for better flow, rewiring significant portions of the house for smart home integration. Mrs. Harmon, Dwayne called as Gloria re-entered. We need to discuss these structural changes. They're more complicated than initially presented. Gloria waved a dismissive hand. Just follow the plans. My husband is paying for this. We might as well get everything done properly. Dwayne frowned. These modifications will add at least 3 weeks to the timeline and significantly increase the budget. Fine, Gloria said tiredly. Just do it. Send the revised estimates to Barrett Leary at Harmon Construction. As Gloria navigated her domestic crisis, across town in a sleek downtown office building, Walter and Wanda Harmon sat uncomfortably across from a team of forensic accountants. The audit of the family business had expanded beyond routine review into what felt increasingly like a criminal investigation. Could you explain again the purpose of these distributions? Asked the lead auditor, a severe woman named Collins, pointing to a series of transactions from the previous year. Walter shifted nervously. Those were standard retirement distributions, part of my compensation package when I transferred majority control to Leo. And these transfers to the Harmon family trust occurred when, exactly? Wanda cleared her throat. Approximately 3 weeks before our granddaughter's wedding. The same time period during which you attempted to remove Leo Harmon as trustee of Isabella Harmon's trust fund, correct? Walter's face flushed. That was a precautionary measure based on concerns about our son's judgment at the time. Collins made a note. Yet you continued to accept distributions authorized by the same son whose judgment you claimed to distrust. That was different, Wanda protested. We never questioned Leo's business acumen, only his emotional availability to his family. I see, Collins replied, her tone making it clear she didn't see it all. We'll need complete documentation of all conversations regarding both the trust fund matter and these distributions. Emails, texts, notes from phone calls, everything. As the auditors continued their methodical dismantling of the Harmons' financial lives, Walter leaned toward Wanda and whispered, Leo is behind this. He's punishing us. For what? Wanda whispered back. Loving our granddaughter? Trying to protect her future. Walter's expression was grim. For choosing sides. For forgetting that Leo was our child long before Bella was our grandchild. Meanwhile, in a tastefully appointed conference room with views of Elliott Bay, Leo sat across from Malcolm Crawford, Curtis's father and CEO of Cascade Technologies. The two men had been engaged in negotiations for over an hour, their conversation moving from careful formality to increasing warmth. I have to say, Leo, these terms are exceptionally favorable, Malcolm remarked, reviewing the proposal for Cascade's exclusive rights to the commercial spaces in Riverside Heights. Almost too favorable. What's the catch? Leo smiled pleasantly. No catch, Malcolm. I believe in building relationships, not just buildings. Our children have united our families. This is simply good business that recognizes that new reality. Malcolm nodded thoughtfully. Curtis speaks very highly of Bella. They seem genuinely happy together. I'm glad to hear it, Leo replied, his expression revealing nothing of the pain beneath. Family is everything, after all. Which reminds me, Malcolm said, setting down the contract. Curtis mentioned there was some awkwardness around the wedding. Something about a date change in your absence. Leo's response was measured. There was a misunderstanding about the date. Unfortunately, I missed my only daughter's wedding as a result. Malcolm frowned. That seems like quite a misunderstanding. Curtis was under the impression it was somehow intentional. Was he? Leo asked mildly. Interesting. What else did Curtis share about the situation? Malcolm looked uncomfortable. Only that Bella seemed upset about the whole thing. That she felt torn between her mother's wishes and her desire to have her father present. Leo leaned forward slightly. Her mother's wishes? Not her own. I got the impression it was complicated, Malcolm admitted. Family dynamics often are. Indeed, Leo agreed. Perhaps you could ask Curtis to clarify something when they return from their honeymoon. Ask him who told Bella I didn't want to attend her wedding. Malcolm's surprise was evident. Someone told her that? It appears so, Leo replied calmly. Just as someone arranged for my daughter's wedding date to be changed without my knowledge, for my invitation to be lost, and for my entire family to participate in an elaborate deception that resulted in me standing alone at an empty venue on what I believed was my daughter's wedding day. Malcolm paled. My God, Leo, I had no idea. Few do, Leo acknowledged. Now, shall we sign these contracts and cement a more honest relationship between our families? As Malcolm signed the agreements with a slightly shaky hand, Leo allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Crawford connection was now secured, a bridge to Bella that neither Gloria nor Adam could sever. By sunset, the first day of Leo's orchestrated revenge had unfolded precisely as planned. Flynn was panicking about his education. Gloria was struggling with mounting renovation costs and Adam's waning support. Walter and Wanda were facing financial scrutiny that threatened their comfortable retirement. And Bella, still blissfully honeymooning in Bali, remained unaware of the earthquake that awaited her return. Leo stood at the window of his Georgetown office, watching the city lights emerge against the darkening sky. Barrett entered silently, placing a folder on the desk behind him. It's done, Barrett reported. The debt consolidation for Kindle is complete. We now control over $900,000 of his outstanding obligations. Leo nodded without turning. And the timing? As instructed, all collection proceedings will initiate simultaneously, 48 hours after Bella and Curtis return from their honeymoon. Good, Leo said softly. Everything is proceeding as designed. Barrett hesitated. There's one more thing. Gloria called me today, desperate about Flynn's tuition. She's considering selling her jewelry to cover it. Is she now? Leo turned, his expression unreadable. Tell me, Barrett, if someone tried to erase you from your child's most important day, if they conspire to take your money and your dignity, would you rush to solve their problems? Barrett met his friend's gaze steadily. No, but I might worry about becoming someone I don't recognize in the process of punishing them. Leo's smile was cold. The man they knew no longer exists. They saw to that themselves. As night fell over Seattle, the architect of vengeance reviewed his blueprints one final time, ensuring every support was in place, every foundation properly laid for the collapse to come. The demolition had begun. Chapter 8. The Collapse. Bella Harmon Crawford stepped off the elevator into the lobby of the Olympic Hotel, her new husband Curtis trailing behind with their luggage. After 12 days in Bali, she was jet-lagged but happy, her honeymoon having been everything she dreamed. Romantic beaches, luxurious accommodations, and the giddy realization that she was finally married to the man she loved. Should we grab lunch before heading to your mom's? Curtis asked as they crossed the marble lobby. Bella checked her phone, which was finally reconnected to cellular service after nearly 2 weeks off the grid. Let me just see if there are any messages first. The deluge that greeted her was overwhelming. 17 missed calls from Flynn, 23 text messages from her mother, 8 voicemails from her grandmother Wanda, even 3 messages from Curtis's father, Malcolm, which was unusual enough to be concerning. Something's wrong, Bella murmured, scrolling through the texts with growing alarm. Everyone's freaking out about Dad. Curtis frowned. Your dad? I thought he was keeping his distance after, the wedding situation. Bella felt the familiar twist of guilt in her stomach. The decision to proceed with the wedding without her father had been the hardest of her life. Her mother and grandmother had insisted it was necessary given the Singapore Opportunities timeline, had assured her that her father would understand eventually. Adam had reinforced the idea, suggesting that Leo would likely make the day about himself anyway. But standing at the altar without her father had left a hollow feeling that even Curtis's love couldn't quite fill. It's more than just distance, Bella said, reading rapidly through the messages. Something major has happened. Mom says she's about to lose the house, Flynn might get kicked out of school, and Grandma and Grandpa are being investigated for fraud. She looked up at Curtis in confusion. What the hell happened while we were gone? Before Curtis could respond, his own phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It's my dad. Maybe he knows something. The conversation was brief but illuminating. When Curtis hung up, his expression was troubled. My dad wants us to come to his office right away. He says there's something we need to know about your father. And it's not what your family has been telling you. Across town in the Medina house, Gloria sat surrounded by chaos. Both the physical disorder of the ongoing renovations and the financial disaster unfolding on her laptop screen. The renovation budget had somehow doubled. Flynn's tuition remained unpaid with the deadline now passed. And her divorce attorney had just informed her that Leo's legal team was challenging her claim to any portion of Harmon construction, citing separate property laws and alleged financial misconduct. The doorbell rang, cutting through the sound of power tools and workmen's voices. Gloria navigated through the construction debris to find Adam Kendall on her doorstep, his normally confident demeanor replaced by barely concealed panic. "We need to talk," he said without greeting, pushing past her into what remained of the foyer. Privately, Gloria led him to the home office, the only room relatively untouched by the renovations. "What's wrong? You look terrible." "I'm being financially crucified," Adam replied, pacing the small space. "Every debt I have, and there are more than I ever told you about, has suddenly come due simultaneously. Credit cards, casino markers, personal loans, tax liens, all of them within hours of each other. It's not coincidence, Gloria. It's coordinated." Gloria sank into the desk chair. "Leo, who else? He must have somehow purchased my debts through shell companies or intermediaries. No normal collection pattern works this way." Adam ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I owe nearly $1 million, Gloria. They're freezing my accounts, putting liens on my condo, even repossessing my car. It's a complete financial execution." Gloria felt cold dread spreading through her. "Why would Leo target you this way? He barely knows you." Adam laughed bitterly. "Because he knows everything, Gloria. About us, about the wedding deception, about the California plans. Everything. How could he possibly?" Gloria stopped suddenly, realization dawning. Barrett Leary has been feeding him information. "The renovation funding," Adam nodded grimly. "It was a trap, and we walked right into it. But why would Barrett betray Leo like that? They've been friends for decades." Adam stared at her incredulously. "He didn't betray Leo. He betrayed us. He was working for Leo the entire time, gathering intelligence, setting us up." Before Gloria could respond, the office door flew open. Flynn stood there, his face a mask of fury. "My education is gone. Did you know that? Not just this semester, all of it. The school received notification that all previous payments were made under fraudulent pretenses and are being investigated. My entire transcript is on hold." Gloria rose shakily. "Flynn, we'll figure something out." "Figure something out?" Flynn's voice rose. "Like you figured out how to exclude Dad from Bella's wedding? Or how you figured Grandma and Grandpa needed to take over Bella's trust fund? How's all that figuring working out for everyone?" Adam stepped forward. "This isn't helping, Flynn. We need to present a united front." "We?" Flynn rounded on him. "There is no we here, Adam. You're just a guy who helped my mother blow up our family for your own benefit. At least that's what Grandpa finally admitted when the investigators started asking specific questions about your involvement." Gloria paled. "What are you talking about? What investigators?" "The forensic accounting team that's been tearing apart Grandma and Grandpa's finances for weeks," Flynn explained furiously. "They finally broke down and told me everything. How Adam suggested they try to take control of Bella's trust fund. How he convinced Mom that Dad was emotionally unsafe around us. How he orchestrated this whole disaster." Adam's face hardened. "Your mother made her own choices. We all did, based on what you told us." Flynn shouted. "Based on your lies about Dad's mental state, about his intentions, about everything." The confrontation was interrupted by the arrival of Dwayne, the renovation foreman, looking grim. "Mrs. Harmon, we have a serious problem. The structural changes in the modified plans. They've compromised the integrity of the entire east wing of the house. We just found significant foundation damage that wasn't visible until we opened up the walls." Gloria stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the house is becoming structurally unsound," Dwayne explained. "These modifications your husband insisted on, they've essentially created a slow-motion demolition. Every wall we remove according to these plans weakens another supporting element. That's impossible, Gloria whispered. Leo designed this house himself. He would never. He would if he wanted to destroy it without ever swinging a hammer himself. Flynn said quietly. Don't you see, Mom? He's dismantling everything. The house, your finances, your relationship with Adam, my education, Grandma and Grandpa's retirement. And he's doing it using our own actions against us. As the implications sank in, Gloria's phone rang. It was Bella. Mom, we need to talk. Curtis and I are with Malcolm Crawford, and I've just learned what really happened with Dad in the wedding. In the sleek offices of Cascade Technologies, Leo sat across from his daughter for the first time since the wedding betrayal. Bella's face was tear-streaked, her honeymoon tan unable to mask her pallor. Curtis stood supportively behind her chair, while Malcolm Crawford observed silently from behind his desk. Why didn't you tell me? Bella asked, her voice small and broken. Why didn't you fight harder to be at my wedding? Leo's expression remained carefully neutral. Would you have believed me if I had told you that your mother, your brother, and your grandparents all conspired to change your wedding date without my knowledge? That they deliberately excluded me from the most important day of your life? Bella shook her head. I was told you were unavailable, that you had chosen a business meeting over the rehearsal dinner, that you'd said the new date didn't work for you. All lies, Leo said simply. I stood alone at an empty venue on what I believed was your wedding day, Bella. I was never given the choice to attend. But why would they do this? Bella asked, fresh tears spilling. Why would Mom and everyone else go to such lengths? I believe that's a question you should ask them, Leo replied, along with questions about your trust fund, which your grandparents attempted to remove from my control 3 weeks before your wedding. Bella looked stunned. My trust fund? Why would they? Because Adam Kendall convinced them I was mentally unstable, Leo explained calmly. The same Adam Kendall who has been having an affair with your mother for at least a year. The same Adam Kendall who helped orchestrate my exclusion from your wedding and planned to help your mother start a new life in California with your divorce settlement. Curtis stepped forward. My father confirmed it all, Bella. He's seen the documentation, the text messages, the financial records. Everything your father is saying is true. Bella covered her face with her hands. This can't be happening. I'm afraid it is, Leo said, his tone softening slightly. And there's more. Your mother's renovation project? It's designed to systematically destroy the structural integrity of the house. Flynn's education? His transcript is currently frozen because the tuition payments are under investigation. Your grandparents' retirement income? Being scrutinized by forensic accountants as we speak. Bella looked up, horror dawning on her face. You're destroying them. All of them. Leo met her gaze steadily. They chose to erase me from your wedding day, from your life. I'm simply ensuring that choice has consequences. But this level of revenge, Bella whispered, is precisely calibrated to the betrayal Leo finished for her. Every action I've taken is a direct response to an action taken against me. The difference is that I'm acting openly, while they operated through deception and manipulation. Malcolm Crawford cleared his throat. Leo has been completely transparent with me about his intentions. Bella, while I can't condone all his methods, I understand his motivations. What was done to him was unconscionable. Bella stood suddenly. I need to see Mom. I need to hear her side of this. Of course, Leo nodded. That's your right. But before you go, there's something you should know. Despite everything, your trust fund remains intact and under my protection. Unlike the others, you were manipulated rather than manipulative. You're as much a victim of their scheme as I was. Bella paused at the door. Does that mean you forgive me? Leo's expression remained impassive. Forgiveness isn't relevant anymore, Bella. Only truth matters now. And the truth is that choices have consequences for everyone. As Bella and Curtis departed, Malcolm turned to Leo. Was that necessary? She's devastated. The truth often is devastating, Leo replied. But it's preferable to comfortable lies. And now, Malcolm asked, where does your revenge end? Leo stood, straightening his jacket. It ends when justice is complete. When everyone involved has paid the full price for their betrayal. Even if that means destroying your own family? Leo smiled coldly. My family was destroyed the moment they decided I was expendable. I'm simply ensuring they understand exactly what they've lost. As Leo left Cascade Technologies, his phone buzzed with a message from Barrett. Gloria just tried to secure an emergency loan against the house. Request denied due to structural concerns raised by her own renovation contractor. She's panicking. Leo sent a single reply. Proceed to final phase. The architect of vengeance had reached the culmination of his design. The supports were compromised, the foundation undermined. All that remained was to remove the final beam and watch the entire structure collapse under its own corrupt weight. Chapter 9. Ashes and Iron. The Medina house stood silent in the gray morning light, its elegant exterior belying the chaos within. Yellow caution tape cordoned off the east wing, where structural engineers had confirmed what Dwayne the foreman had discovered. The renovations had fatally compromised the home's integrity. Remediation would cost more than the original construction. Inside the untouched West Wing living room, the remnants of the Harmon family gathered like survivors of a natural disaster. Gloria sat rigid on the edge of the sofa, her normally perfect appearance disheveled after days of crisis. Flynn paced by the windows, occasionally checking his phone for updates on his academic situation. Walter and Wanda Harmon occupied matching armchairs, looking older than their years, the stress of the financial investigation evident in their posture and expressions. Adam Kendall was conspicuously absent, having disappeared the previous day after learning that his condo had been foreclosed upon and his design business assets frozen. Bella stood by the fireplace, Curtis's supportive presence beside her. The honeymoon tan had faded from her face, replaced by the pallor of shock and disillusionment. "He'll be here soon," Bella said to no one in particular. "He agreed to meet with all of us together." Gloria laughed humorlessly. "To what end? So he can gloat over his perfect revenge? So he can watch us grovel and beg? So we can face the truth," Bella replied firmly. "All of us, together. No more lies, no more manipulation." The doorbell rang, its familiar chime now seeming like an alarm. Flynn moved to answer it, returning moments later with Leo and Barrett. Leo surveyed the assembled family with the detached interest of a scientist observing specimens. Barrett remained by the door, a silent sentinel. "Thank you for coming, Dad," Bella said into the strained silence. Leo nodded once. "You asked. I came. A courtesy some members of this family might consider adopting." Walter cleared his throat. "Son, we understand you're angry." "Angry doesn't begin to encompass what I am," Leo interrupted calmly. "Anger is a hot, immediate emotion. What I feel is something far colder and more enduring." "We made a mistake," Wanda said, her voice quavering. "A terrible mistake. We should never have gone along with excluding you from Bella's wedding." "A mistake," Leo repeated. "Is that what we're calling coordinated betrayal these days? A simple error in judgment." Gloria stood. "What do you want from us, Leo? You've destroyed everything already. The house is falling apart. Flynn's education is in jeopardy. Your parents are facing financial ruin. Adam has fled. What more do you want?" "Justice," Leo replied simply, "which is why I've asked Barrett to distribute these." He nodded to his colleague, who began handing out sealed envelopes to each person in the room. "What are these?" Flynn asked suspiciously. "Open them and see." With varying degrees of trepidation, each member of the family opened their envelope. Inside each was a single document, different for each recipient, but all bearing the Harmon Construction letterhead and Leo's signature. Flynn was the first to understand what he held. "This is a tuition guarantee for the completion of my degree. Full funding, no conditions." Wanda gasped as she read her document. "The audit is terminated, with no findings of wrongdoing." Walter studied his paper with disbelief. "Our retirement distributions are secured for life, regardless of future company performance." Gloria's hands trembled as she held her document. "The house renovations will be completely remediated at no cost to me, and I receive ownership of the summer cabin in Oregon as part of the divorce settlement." Bella looked up from her paper, tears in her eyes. "My trust fund remains intact, and you've established a separate fund for any children Curtis and I might have. Leo observed their reactions with clinical detachment. Each of you receives exactly what you need most: financial security, education, housing, future protection. Everything you feared losing when my revenge began. Gloria looked confused. I don't understand. After everything we did, you're just giving us what we need. On the contrary, Leo replied coldly, I'm giving you exactly what you deserve. Financial security without emotional connection. Material comfort without family bonds. Money without love or trust. The realization dawned on each face gradually. The true nature of Leo's ultimate revenge. You're removing yourself from our lives, Bella whispered. Permanently. Leo nodded. You all made the decision that I was unnecessary for family milestones, that my presence was expendable, my participation optional. I'm simply making that arrangement permanent and comprehensive. But these documents, Walter began, are legally binding and irrevocable, Leo confirmed. Your material needs will be met for the rest of your lives. But there is one condition detailed on the final page of each agreement. Flynn turned to the last page of his document and read aloud. In exchange for the financial security provided herein, the recipient agrees to no further contact, communication, or attempted reconciliation with Leo Harmon, effective immediately and in perpetuity. Silence fell over the room as the full implications became clear. You can't be serious, Gloria finally said. You're buying our absence from your life? I'm formalizing the arrangement you all initiated. Leo corrected her. You decided I wasn't necessary as a father, husband, or son. I'm simply making it official and ensuring you understand exactly what you're losing in exchange for financial comfort. Wanda began to cry softly. Leo, please. We made a terrible mistake, but this is too harsh. Is it? Leo countered. Was it not harsh to exclude me from my only daughter's wedding? Was it not harsh to attempt to take control of her trust fund behind my back? Was it not harsh to lie to my face for weeks while planning to start a new life with another man? He looked around the room. You all chose material comfort and emotional convenience over loyalty and honesty. Now you get to live with that choice permanently. Barrett stepped forward, placing a sleek fountain pen on the coffee table. Each of you needs to sign your document today. The benefits begin immediately upon signature. Flynn looked stricken. And if we refuse, then you receive nothing, Leo said simply. No tuition, no house repairs, no retirement security, no trust fund. You chose to gamble with our family bonds. These are the stakes. Curtis, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Sir, I understand your pain. But Bella wasn't the architect of this deception. She was misled like you were. Leo turned to his son-in-law. Yet she made her choice based on that misinformation. We all live with the consequences of our choices, Curtis, even when those choices are made with incomplete information. Bella stepped toward her father, tears streaming down her face. Dad, please. I know we hurt you terribly. I will regret excluding you from my wedding for the rest of my life. But this, cutting yourself off from all of us forever, this isn't justice. It's self-punishment, too. For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed Leo's face. Perhaps, but it's the only path forward I can see. Gloria approached her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, with a dignity she had struggled to maintain throughout the crisis. You never were one for half measures, Leo. You built our life together brick by brick, and now you're dismantling it with the same thoroughness. She picked up the pen. I'll sign, not because I want your money, but because I recognize this is the consequence of my betrayal. One by one, each family member signed their document. Flynn, with angry, slashing strokes. Walter and Wanda, with shaking hands and tears. Bella last, her signature barely legible through her grief. Barrett collected the signed papers, placing them in his briefcase. I'll have copies sent to each of you for your records. Leo surveyed the ruins of his family one final time. The renovations will begin tomorrow. The tuition payment will be processed immediately. The audit termination is already filed. Everything else will proceed according to the timelines in your documents. He turned to leave, but Bella's voice stopped him. Dad, wait. What about forgiveness? Isn't that part of justice too? Leo paused, his back to the room. Forgiveness requires repentance and restitution. You've provided neither. You simply got caught, and now face consequences you didn't anticipate. So, there's no chance for reconciliation? Ever? Flynn asked, his earlier anger now tempered with dawning loss. Leo turned slightly. You all made a choice that day, to erase me from what should have been one of the most important moments of my life as a father. Now I'm making mine, to accept that erasure and make it complete. Leo, please, Gloria tried one last time. 30 years of marriage. 2 children together. Doesn't that count for anything? It counted for nothing when you decided to exclude me from our daughter's wedding, Leo replied coldly. When you plotted with Adam Kindle to take my money and start a new life. When you lied to my face day after day. He looked around the room. Each of you chose comfort over honesty, convenience over loyalty, easy lies over difficult truth. These agreements merely formalize what you already decided. With that, Leo turned and walked out, Barrett following after a brief nod to the assembled family. The front door closed with a quiet click that sounded like the final period on the end of story. In the silent living room, the Harmon family faced each other as strangers united only by the ashes of what they had burned. Bella was the first to speak. What have we done? No one had an answer. Outside, Leo settled into the passenger seat of Barrett's car. The overcast sky had begun to clear, rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds over Lake Washington. Are you sure about this? Barrett asked quietly as he started the engine. It's a high price to pay for justice. Leo watched his former home recede in the side mirror. They made their choice when they decided I was expendable. I'm simply honoring that decision. And Bella? She was manipulated by the others. She made her choice, Leo repeated, his voice devoid of emotion. Now she lives with it, just as I live with mine. Barrett nodded slowly. Where to now? Leo turned away from the window. Riverside Heights. We have a building to construct. As they drove toward the future Leo had designed, one built on the ashes of betrayal but forged with iron determination. He felt no joy in his victory, no satisfaction in his revenge. Only the cold certainty that, like every structure he had ever built, this one too would stand the test of time. Unforgiving, unyielding, and utterly complete. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Shadow Behind the Smile. Victor Vance had learned to read people during his 12 years as a homicide detective in Chicago. It was a skill that never left him, even after he'd resigned 3 years ago to start his private security consulting firm. So when his brother-in-law Doug Clark walked through the door that Christmas Eve with his picture-perfect family smile, Victor's instincts immediately flared. Something was off. Victor, Merry Christmas. Doug's voice boomed across the living room of Victor's suburban home, his arm wrapped possessively around his wife, Sheila's waist. Behind them, 7-year-old Emma shuffled in quietly, her eyes downcast, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Victor's wife, Lydia, rushed forward to embrace her younger sister. Sheila, you made it. How was the drive from Michigan? Long, Sheila said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Victor noticed the makeup that didn't fully conceal a fading bruise on her cheekbone. But we're here now. Doug was a successful pharmaceutical sales rep. At least that's what he told everyone. Tall, charismatic, with silver-streaked hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. He'd married Sheila 8 years ago, and from the outside, they seemed to have it all. The big house in Grand Rapids, the luxury cars, the country club membership. But Victor had seen too many perfect facades in his career. They always cracked eventually. Emma, sweetheart. Lydia knelt down to her niece's level. Come give Aunt Lydia a hug. The little girl's eyes darted to her father before she moved forward mechanically into Lydia's embrace. Victor watched Doug's jaw clench almost imperceptibly. Where's she hiding those Christmas manners? Doug said with a forced chuckle, moving toward his daughter. Come here, princess. Give Daddy a hug. Emma froze. Her small body went rigid, and she stepped backward, positioning herself behind Lydia. I don't want to, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The room went silent. Victor straightened from where he'd been leaning against the doorframe, his attention laser-focused now. Doug's face flushed red. Emma, leave her alone, Doug, Sheila said quietly, reaching for her daughter. There was something in her tone, not defiance, but exhausted resignation. She's tired from the drive. Don't give her attention for this behavior, Doug snapped, his charm evaporating like morning mist. She needs to learn respect. Victor stepped forward, his 6'2" frame and broad shoulders filling the space. Hey, Doug, how about I show you where you can put your bags? Guest room's upstairs. It wasn't a suggestion. Doug's eyes met Victor's, and for a moment, something dark flickered across the other man's face. Then the smile returned, plastic and hollow. Sure thing, Vic, lead the way. As Victor led Doug upstairs, Lydia distracted Sheila with questions about their trip, while Emma remained silent, gripping her mother's hand like a lifeline. Later that evening, as Lydia prepared dinner, Victor retreated to his study to make a phone call. His old partner, Kurt Costa, still worked the detective beat in Chicago. Vic, don't tell me you're calling to come back. You know Captain would take you in a heartbeat. Not quite, Kirk. I need you to run a name for me. Quietly. Who? Douglas William Clark. Lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Sales rep for Apex Pharmaceuticals. There was a pause. This about family? Yeah. Give me an hour. Victor hung up and stood at his window, watching the snow begin to fall. In the backyard, he could see Emma through the glass door, standing alone near the decorated Christmas tree, her small frame silhouetted against the twinkling lights. She was tracing her finger along the window, drawing something. When Victor looked closer, his blood ran cold. She was writing help in the condensation over and over again. Chapter 2. The Confession. Dinner was a tense affair. Doug dominated the conversation, telling exaggerated stories about his sales achievements while Sheila pushed food around her plate. Emma barely ate, her eyes fixed on the table. So, Victor, Doug said, cutting into his prime rib with aggressive precision. Lydia tells me your little security business is doing well. Must be quite the step down from detective work, though, huh? Playing rent-a-cop for corporate executives? Lydia's fork stopped midair. Victor felt her stiffen beside him. It pays the bills, Victor said evenly, sipping his wine. And I sleep better at night. I bet you do, Doug said with a condescending smile. No more chasing bad guys, dealing with the scum of society. Must be nice. The scum of society aren't always who you'd expect, Victor replied, his eyes never leaving Doug's face. Sometimes they wear suits, smile at their neighbors, blend right in. Doug's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Doug, honey, Sheila interjected quickly, her voice shaking slightly. Maybe we should talk about something else? I'm just making conversation with my brother-in-law, Doug said, his tone hardening. Is that not allowed anymore? Emma dropped her fork. The clatter seemed deafening in the sudden silence. She mumbled an apology and slid from her chair. May I be excused? No, Doug said sharply. You've barely touched your food. I'll take her to pick out a Christmas movie, Lydia said, standing. Come on, sweetie. Doug opened his mouth to protest, but Victor cut in. Good idea. Sheila, you should help them. I'll handle the dishes. It was a dismissal, and Doug knew it. His jaw worked as Sheila quickly stood, relief washing over her features as she followed Lydia and Emma into the living room. Alone with Victor, Doug leaned back in his chair, his mask slipping further. You got something to say to me, Vic? Not yet, Victor said, beginning to clear the table. But I will. An hour later, Victor excused himself to retrieve presents from the garage. He'd barely opened the door when he felt a small presence behind him. Emma had followed him, silent as a ghost. He turned, and his heart broke. Tears streamed down her face, and her whole body trembled. Emma? Sweetheart, what's wrong? She looked back toward the house, terrified, then up at him. When she spoke, her voice was so quiet he had to kneel down to hear her. Uncle Victor, Actually, Daddy. She choked on the words, her breath coming in gasps. Daddy hurts me. And Mommy. He touches me in places that feel bad and says if I tell anyone, he'll kill Mommy and make me watch. The words hit Victor like a physical blow. His hands clenched into fists, and he had to force himself to breathe, to stay calm for this terrified child in front of him. He makes me do things, she continued, tears flowing freely now. Bad things. And he takes pictures. He says no one will believe me because he's too important. Uncle Victor, I'm scared. I'm so scared all the time. Victor pulled her into his arms, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Over her shoulder, through the garage window, he could see Doug standing at the kitchen window, watching them. When their eyes met, Doug smiled. Emma, listen to me, Victor said, pulling back to look at her. You're so brave for telling me. And I promise, he will never hurt you or your mother again. Do you understand? She nodded, wiping at her tears. I need you to do something for me. Can you be strong for just a little while longer? Another nod. Good girl. Now we're going to go back inside, and you're going to act normal. Can you do that? Yes. And Emma, you did the right thing. You're safe now. As they walked back into the house, Victor's phone buzzed. A text from Kirk, call me. Now, what you're looking into, it's worse than you think. Chapter 3, The Devils Resume. After Emma went to bed, Victor stood in his study, phone pressed to his ear, listening to Kirk's findings. Each word was another nail in Doug Clark's coffin. Douglas William Clark, age 43. On the surface, clean as a whistle. But I called in some favors with Michigan State Police. There's been an ongoing investigation. What kind? Child Exploitation Task Force. They've been building a case for 8 months. Doug's part of a network, producers and distributors of child sexual abuse material. They've identified him from digital forensics, but haven't moved yet because they're trying to map the whole operation. Victor's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. Emma's his victim. Jesus, Vic, you're sure? She just told me. In detail. Kirk was silent for a moment. You need to call this in. Get her to safety. Let the system work. The system. Victor's laugh was bitter. Kirk, you and I both know how this goes. They'll interview her, traumatize her further, and Doug's expensive lawyers will drag it out for years. Sheila will be pressured to stay quiet. The trial will destroy what's left of that little girl's childhood. And even if he's convicted, he'll be out in 15 years, maybe less with good behavior. Vic, don't. I'm not going to do anything stupid, Victor lied. I'll make sure Emma's safe. Thanks for the information. He hung up before Kurt could protest further. Downstairs, he found Lydia cleaning up the kitchen. She looked at him, and whatever she saw in his expression made her freeze. Vic, what happened? He told her. Everything. By the end, Lydia was crying, her hand over her mouth. Oh my God, that poor baby. Sheila, she must be terrified too. She is. I saw the bruise on her face. He's been beating her, controlling her. Classic abuser pattern. We have to call the police. Child services. We will, Victor said, though his mind was already working through a different plan. But first, I need to talk to Sheila. Alone. He found his sister-in-law in the guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. Doug was in the shower, the sound of water running through the pipes. Sheila. She jumped, then relaxed when she saw it was Victor. Is everything okay? Emma talked to me. The color drained from Sheila's face. Her hands began to shake. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Victor closed the door behind him, speaking quietly. How long have you known? She broke then, tears spilling over. 6 months. I found pictures on his computer. I confronted him, and he beat me so badly I couldn't walk for 2 days. He said if I ever told anyone or tried to leave, he'd kill Emma in front of me, then kill me. He said he had friends in the police, that no one would believe me. Why didn't you come to us? Because he watches everything. My phone, my emails, my car has a GPS tracker. He monitors who I talk to. The only reason we came here is because he wanted to maintain appearances. She gripped Victor's arm desperately. Please, Victor. I know what you were. I know you dealt with people like him. Help us. The police will take forever. and he'll destroy evidence. He'll disappear. He has money hidden, offshore accounts, connections. Please. Victor looked at this broken woman, his wife's sister, and made a decision that would change everything. Pack a bag for you and Emma. Small. Nothing obvious. Hide it in your car. Tomorrow morning, we're going to church. All of us. During the service, you and Emma are going to leave with Lydia. There's a women's shelter in the city, confidential location. They'll protect you while I handle Doug. Handle him how? Victor's expression went cold, and Sheila saw the homicide detective he used to be, the man who'd put away Chicago's worst monsters. You don't want to know? Plausible deniability. But I need something from you first. Anything. His computer password. His phone code. Access to everything. Sheila nodded, pulling out a small notebook from her purse. She'd been preparing for this moment, waiting for someone strong enough to help her. She handed Victor a page filled with passwords, account numbers, and detailed notes about Doug's schedule and habits. There's more, she whispered. He keeps a safe in our house. I managed to get it open once. There are hard drives inside. Videos. Pictures. Not just Emma. Other children. Victor felt rage so pure it nearly consumed him. But he channeled it, focused it. This wasn't about vengeance. This was about justice. Good. After you're safe tomorrow, I'll need you to report everything to the police. But I need 48 hours first. For what? To make sure Doug Clark never hurts another child again. The shower turned off. Sheila quickly wiped her tears, composing herself with the practiced ease of an abuse victim. Victor left the room, passing Doug in the hallway. They exchanged no words, but Doug's smug expression said everything. You can't touch me. He had no idea who he was dealing with. In his study, Victor opened his laptop and began a plan. He'd spent years hunting predators. Now, he was about to become something far more dangerous. He pulled up the blueprints to Doug's house in Grand Rapids, which he'd obtained through his security consulting firm's database. He made calls to old contacts, not cops, but the other kind. People who operated in shadows. People who owed him favors. By 2 a.m., the framework was in place. Tomorrow, Emma and Sheila would be safe. And then, Douglas William Clark's carefully constructed life would burn to the ground. Victor had always believed in justice. But sometimes justice needed a helping hand. And sometimes that hand needed to get dirty. Chapter 4. The Shepherd and the Wolf. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and the smell of cinnamon rolls baking. To any outsider, the Vance household looked like a Norman Rockwell painting. But beneath the surface, everyone was playing a role. Doug sat in the living room, watching Emma open presents with the intensity of a predator. Victor noticed how Emma never showed genuine joy, how every smile was calculated to please her father, how she'd glance at him before reacting to any gift. We should get ready for church, Lydia announced at 9 a.m. Service starts at 10. Doug frowned. We didn't bring church clothes. It's Christmas. Come as you are, Victor said, leaving no room for argument. It's tradition. At Mercy Presbyterian, they filed into a pew near the back. Victor had chosen this church specifically. He called ahead, spoke with Pastor Gene Shepard, a man he'd worked with on a community outreach program years ago. Gene knew what Victor had been, and more importantly, knew when not to ask questions. Halfway through the service, during a hymn, Lydia stood with Sheila and Emma. Ladies' room, she whispered. They didn't come back. Doug didn't notice for another 10 minutes. When he did, his whole demeanor changed. The mask slipped completely. Where the hell are they? Probably still in the bathroom, Victor said calmly. You know how women are. But Doug was already standing, pushing past people in the pew. Victor followed at a measured pace, watching Doug check the bathrooms, the nursery, the parking lot. Sheila's car was gone. Where are they? Doug spun on Victor, his face purple with rage. What did you do? People were staring now. Victor remained calm, his voice low and controlled. I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe they want to get coffee. Her phone's going to voicemail. This was you. Doug grabbed Victor's shirt. You turned her against me. That's parental kidnapping. I'll have the police. The police? Victor's smile was predatory. By all means, Doug. Let's call them. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your concern for Emma's safety. Doug's hand dropped. His eyes darted around at the crowd gathering. He was smart enough to know he couldn't make a scene. Not here. He forced out a laugh, running a hand through his hair. Sorry, everyone. Family stress. You know how it is. But as he walked past Victor toward the exit, he hissed, "This isn't over." No. Victor agreed quietly. It's just beginning. Back at the house, Doug was frantic. He tried calling Sheila repeatedly. He sent increasingly threatening texts that Victor made sure to screenshot. He even tried accessing tracking apps on his phone, only to find them mysteriously non-functional. Looking for something? Victor asked, walking into the living room where Doug was destroying the guest room, searching for clues. Where did you send them? Somewhere you can't hurt them anymore. Doug laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have no idea what you've done. Sheila's my wife. Emma's my daughter. You just committed a felony. Have I? Victor sat down, completely relaxed. From where I'm sitting, your wife took your daughter and left. Happens every day. Maybe she finally got tired of the bruises. Or maybe she found out about your extracurricular activities. Doug went very still. What are you talking about? The investigation, Doug. The Michigan State Police Task Force. The child exploitation network you're part of. Victor pulled out his phone, showing Doug a file. The one Kirk had sent him, complete with digital forensics reports and surveillance photos. Did you really think you were untouchable? The color drained from Doug's face. Then, quick as a snake, he moved. He was bigger than he looked, and clearly used to overpowering people. He swung at Victor, a wild haymaker. Victor caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted, and had Doug face down on the floor in less than 3 seconds. Years of police training, muscle memory. Here's what's going to happen, Victor said, his knee on Doug's back. You're going to leave my house. You're going to drive back to Grand Rapids. And you're going to wait. For what? For everything you've built to collapse. Victor released him. Doug scrambled his feet, breathing hard. For the first time, Victor saw real fear in his eyes. You think you can threaten me? I have lawyers. I have money. I have connections that would make you. You have nothing, Victor interrupted. You're a child rapist with delusions of power. And in about 48 hours, everyone you know is going to see exactly what you are. Doug grabbed his coat and bags, his hands shaking. At the door, he turned back. I'll destroy you for this. You and your bitch wife. I'll make sure you never. Doug. Victor's voice stopped him cold. One more threat against my family, and I won't wait for the police. I'll handle you myself, and they'll never find your body. Am I clear? The two men stared at each other. Doug saw something in Victor's eyes that made him take a step back. This wasn't a bluff. This was a promise. He left without another word. Victor waited until Doug's car disappeared down the street, then pulled out his phone. Kirk? He's on his way back to Grand Rapids. Tell your Michigan contacts to sit tight. They'll have everything they need by Wednesday. What are you planning, Vic? Something poetic. He hung up and dialed another number. Santiago? It's Victor Vance. Remember when I got your daughter back from those traffickers in Gary? Yeah, I need to call in that favor. Chapter 5. The Network Unravels. Victor's security consulting firm, Vanguard Solutions, had resources most people didn't know about. Legitimate on the surface, but with connections to a darker world. The kind of world that dealt in information, leverage, and off-the-books operations. Santiago Mayo was one of those connections. A former NSA analyst who'd gone private. He could crack any system, trace any digital footprint. More importantly, he understood men like Doug Clark. I've got the passwords, Victor said, sitting in his office Monday morning while Lydia visited Emma and Sheila at the shelter. I need everything. His computer, his phone, his cloud storage. All of it. This is going to be ugly, isn't it? Santiago asked over the encrypted video call. Uglier than you can imagine. Can you do it remotely? If he's stupid enough to use the same passwords across devices? Absolutely. Give me 6 hours. While Santiago worked, Victor made another call. To Troy Curtis, an investigative journalist who'd won a Pulitzer for exposing a trafficking ring in Detroit. They'd worked together on a case 3 years ago. Victor Vance. I thought you retired to play security guard. I've got a story for you, Troy. One that'll make your Pulitzer look like a participation trophy. I'm listening. Victor laid it out. The network. Doug's involvement. the evidence he was about to obtain. But there's a condition. You sit on it until I give you the green light. 48 hours max. Why the wait? Because I'm not just exposing one predator. I'm burning down the whole operation. And I need time to make sure they can't run. Troy was quiet for a moment. You're playing a dangerous game. These people hurt children, Troy. Destroyed lives. The system moves too slow, and they've got lawyers who'll drag it out for years. By the time they're convicted, they'll have moved evidence, disappeared witnesses. I'm not letting that happen. What do you need from me? When I give you the evidence, I need it published everywhere. Front page. Every news outlet. Make it so loud and public that they can't suppress it. Can you do that? For a story like this? Hell yes. At 3 p.m., Santiago called back. Victor, you need to sit down for this. I'm sitting. I've cracked Doug's systems. You were right. He used the same passwords everywhere. And what I found, Santiago's voice wavered. There are hundreds of files, videos, pictures. Emma's in a lot of them, but there are at least 30 other children too. Victor's jaw clenched. Can you identify them? Some. There's metadata, locations, dates, and Victor. There are communications, emails to other members of the network. I've got names, addresses. This isn't just Doug. This is doctors, lawyers, a cop, a judge. These are powerful people. Send me everything. Every single file, every communication, every name. Already encrypted and uploading to your secure server. But Victor, be careful. These people have resources. If they find out you have this, let them find out. I want them scared. Victor hung up and opened his laptop. The files began downloading. He forced himself to stay clinical, to not look at the images themselves, but at the metadata, the network diagram Santiago had created. One name jumped out, Judge Lester Pineda, Michigan Circuit Court. He'd been the one communicating most frequently with Doug, discussing merchandise and new acquisitions. Another, Dr. Elmer Wright, a pediatrician in Grand Rapids. Access to vulnerable children. And there was more. A state legislator, 2 businessmen, a teacher, all connected through encrypted forums and cryptocurrency payments. Victor began building his strategy. He couldn't just expose Doug. That would send the others running. He needed to trap them all simultaneously. He called Kirk again. How fast can Michigan State Police move on multiple warrants? If they have solid evidence, 24 hours. Why? Because I'm about to hand them the biggest child exploitation case in state history. But I need coordination. Every suspect needs to be hit at the same time. Can you make that happen? Vic, you should hand this over now. If you're tampering with evidence. I'm not tampering. I'm organizing. Trust me, Kirk. One more day, and you'll have everything gift-wrapped. That night, Victor barely slept. He worked through the evidence with Santiago, building an airtight case file for each suspect. They traced cryptocurrency transactions, identified victims, compiled timelines. By Tuesday morning, they had a 400-page report that would destroy 23 lives. The guilty lives. But Victor wasn't satisfied with just legal consequences. These men had operated with impunity for years, hiding behind their wealth and status. They needed to understand what true fear felt like. He made one more call to Andre De Leon, an old friend from his military days before he'd become a cop. Andre ran a private military contracting firm, but he also handled specialized work. I need a team, Victor said. Surveillance and intimidation. Nothing illegal, yet. Just make sure certain people understand that someone's watching. How many targets? 23. Andre whistled. That's a big operation, Vic. What's the budget? Whatever it takes. I've got $200,000 in my security firm's discretionary fund. Use it. You're serious about this. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. By Tuesday afternoon, Andre's team was in position. Each member of the network found subtle signs that their world was closing in. A car following them. A stranger photographing them in public. Anonymous emails with simple messages. We know what you are. The psychological pressure was immediate. Several members of the network began frantically deleting files, making the kind of mistakes desperate people make. Mistakes that left digital trails Santiago could follow. They're panicking, Santiago reported. Judge Pineda just tried to wipe his hard drive. Dr. Wright withdrew $50,000 in cash. They know something's coming. Good, Victor said. Let them sweat. Wednesday morning, Victor met with Kirk and a contingent of Michigan State Police detectives in a secure location. He handed over the evidence files, watched their expressions change from skepticism to horror as they reviewed the material. Jesus Christ, one detective breathed. How did you get all this? Does it matter? Victor asked. It's admissible, legally obtained through passwords provided by one of the victim's guardians. The chain of custody is clean. The lead detective, a hard-faced woman named Clara Jensen, looked at Victor with new respect. You built our entire case for us. I did your job, Victor corrected. Now finish it. I want warrants executed simultaneously tomorrow at 6 a.m. Every suspect, every location. No warning, no chance to run. That's already the plan, Clara said. But I need to know, is there anything else you're planning? Because if you interfere with our arrests, I won't, Victor lied. I just want these people behind bars. What he didn't tell them was that justice wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. Chapter 6, The Public Execution. Thursday, 6 a.m. Victor sat in his office, police scanner crackling with encrypted chatter as raids began across Michigan. One by one, suspects were taken into custody. Doug Clark, Judge Pineda, Dr. Wright, all 23 members of the network. At 7 a.m., Troy Curtis published his story. It exploded across every news outlet in the country within an hour. The headline screamed, Michigan elite child predator ring exposed. Dozens arrested in multi-state operation. The article included everything. Names, photos, detailed accounts of the abuse. By noon, it was the top story on every network. Social media went ballistic, but Victor had one more piece to deploy. He'd held back certain files from the police, not evidence of the crimes themselves, but communications that showed the network's arrogance, their contempt for their victims, their belief that they were untouchable. Text messages where they joked about the children they'd abused. Emails discussing how to intimidate witnesses. Victor sent these files directly to the victims' families, to advocacy groups, to every major media outlet. He made sure the public didn't just know these men were criminals. They understood exactly how monstrous they were. The reaction was swift and brutal. Judge Pineda's house was surrounded by protesters within hours. Someone threw a brick through Dr. Wright's office window. Doug's pharmaceutical company issued a statement disavowing him, announcing an internal investigation. Their lawyers tried to control the narrative, but it was too late. The court of public opinion had already convicted them. Victor watched it unfold from his office, feeling no satisfaction, only a cold sense of completion. Emma was safe. Sheila was safe. The network was destroyed. But he wasn't done with Doug Clark. That afternoon, Victor visited the women's shelter where Lydia had brought Emma and Sheila. Emma ran to him when she saw him, wrapping her small arms around his waist. Uncle Victor, I saw the news. Daddy's in jail. He is sweetheart, and he's going to stay there for a very long time. Sheila stood nearby, looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past week. But there was something else in her eyes now, too. Hope. Thank you, she said quietly. I know what you did. The police said the evidence just appeared, but I know it was you. You saved us. You saved yourselves, Victor said. You found the courage to trust me. That took more strength than anything I did. What happens now? Sheila asked. Now you heal. You testify. You help put them away forever. And you and Emma start a new life. Emma tugged on Victor's sleeve. Will Daddy ever get out? Victor knelt down to her level, meeting her eyes. Emma, your father is going to prison for the rest of his life. He will never hurt you again. Do you believe me? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they were tears of relief. I believe you, Uncle Victor. That evening, Victor received a call from an unlisted number. When he answered, a raspy voice spoke. Mr. Vance? My name is Byron Holder. I'm the father of one of the children in those files. The police showed me the evidence against Doug Clark. My daughter was 7 when he hurt her. Victor's grip on the phone tightened. I'm sorry. No child should ever. I'm not calling for sympathy, Byron interrupted. I'm calling because I heard through the grapevine how this all came together, how you orchestrated it, and I want to thank you. But I also want you to know that some of the other parents, we've been talking. We're not satisfied with just a trial. What are you saying? I'm saying that Doug Clark and the others, they'll be in protective custody, isolated from general population because of what they are. They'll live comfortable lives in prison, 3 meals a day, books, TV, while our children live with nightmares forever. Victor understood what Byron wasn't saying. Justice will be served. Will it? Or will they hire expensive lawyers, draw out appeals for decades? You were a cop, Mr. Vance. You know how this works. These are rich, powerful men. The system protects them. Not this time, Victor said quietly. I promise you, not this time. After he hung up, Victor sat in the darkness of his study, thinking. The arrests were just the beginning. The trial would take years. And Byron was right. These men had resources to fight back. But Victor had something they didn't. Connections in places they'd never imagined. People who owed him favors. People who operated in the shadows of the prison system. He made a call to a number he'd sworn never to use again. When a gruff voice answered, Victor spoke 2 words. I'm calling it in. The favor from San Quentin, the voice asked. Yes, but this time, it's not one person. It's 23. A pause. That's a tall order, Vic. I help you get your brother out before his trial. Kept evidence from surfacing. I'm not asking for murder, just justice. The kind that happens when certain information reaches certain inmates. Information about what they did. Everything. Names, crimes, photos. I want it circulated through every prison in Michigan. General population. Let the inmates know exactly who these men are. Another pause. That's a death sentence. You know that. I know, Victor said, and I'm fine with it. Consider done. But Vic, after this, we're even. No more favors. Deal. Victor hung up and poured himself a whiskey. He stood at the window, watching snow fall on his quiet suburban street, and wondered when exactly he'd crossed the line from law enforcement to executioner. Then he thought of Emma's face, the fear in her eyes, the way she'd flinched from her own father's touch. He drank the whiskey and felt nothing but resolve. Some monsters didn't deserve trials. They deserved extinction. Chapter 7. The Price of Justice. 3 weeks after the arrests, Doug Clark sat in the Wayne County Jail awaiting trial. His lawyers had arranged protective custody, keeping him isolated from general population. He had a cell to himself, access to books, and 3 meals a day. He thought he was safe. On a Tuesday morning, during his hour of recreation in the isolated yard, Doug found himself facing 3 corrections officers he'd never seen before. Large men with cold eyes. Mr. Clark, one said, "You're being transferred." Transferred? My lawyers didn't mention. Administrative decision. Come with us. They led him through corridors he didn't recognize, away from the protected wing. Doug's attorney instincts kicked in. I want to make a phone call. This is irregular. I have rights. The lead officer's hand clamped on his shoulder. You have a right to shut the fuck up. They brought him to a new cell block. The sounds were different here. Louder. More chaotic. General population. There's been a mistake, Doug said, panic rising in his voice. I'm supposed to be in protective custody. I'm a high-profile defendant. Yeah, we know exactly who you are, the officer said, unlocking a cell door. Everyone knows who you are now. He shoved Doug inside. The door clanged shut. In the cell next to him, an inmate pressed his face against the bars. Well, fresh meat. And looky here, boys, it's one of them kitty diddlers from the news. The cell block erupted in jeers and threats. Doug backed against the far wall, his expensive suit rumpled, his perfectly coiffed hair disheveled. Guards, he screamed. Guards, this is a violation of my rights. I'll have your badges. I'll sue everyone in this. A guard walked by, not even glancing at him. Maybe you should have thought about rights when you were raping 7-year-olds, Clark. That night, in the showers, Doug Clark learned what true fear felt like. For inmates, all serving life sentences for various violent crimes, surrounded him. They'd seen the news reports, read the stories, seen the photos of the children he'd hurt. One of them, a hulking man named Jesse Cobb, had a daughter the same age as Emma. What happened next? The official report would call an unfortunate incident. Doug's lawyers would scream about negligence and demand investigations. But security footage from that wing would mysteriously malfunction for exactly 18 minutes. When the guards finally discovered Doug, he was alive, but barely. Broken ribs, shattered jaw, ruptured kidney. He'd live, but he'd never be the same. And this was just the beginning. Victor learned about the incident from Kirk, who called him that evening. Jesus, Vic, someone shanked Doug Clark in county lockup. He's in critical condition. Is he going to survive? Yeah, but the doctors say the damage is extensive. He's going to need months of recovery before he can even stand trial. Victor said nothing. Vic, you wouldn't know anything about this, would you? Why would I know anything about what happens in county jail, Kirk? Because this has your fingerprints all over it. Doug was supposed to be in protective custody. Somehow he got transferred to General Pop. Somehow the guards didn't notice until it was almost too late. And somehow the security cameras went down at exactly the right time. Sounds like administrative incompetence, Victor said evenly. Happens all the time in underfunded facilities. Kirk was quiet for a long moment. I've known you for 15 years, Vic. You're not a vigilante. You believe in the system. I believe in the system, Victor corrected. Past tense. Then I saw what Doug Clark did to my niece. We did to 30 other children. And I realized the system moves too slow for monsters like him. So you took matters into your own hands. I made sure justice was served. However that needed to happen. Vic, if this comes back on you, it won't. I made sure of that. And Kirk, I sleep better at night, knowing Doug Clark is suffering. Does that make me a bad person? I think it makes you human, Kirk said quietly. But be careful. The line between justice and revenge is thinner than you think. After hanging up, Victor drove to the shelter to see Emma and Sheila. He found them in the common room, Emma coloring while Sheila read a book. Both looked more relaxed than he'd ever seen them. Uncle Victor, Emma ran to him. Look what I drew. It was a picture of a family, stick figures representing Emma, Sheila, Victor, and Lydia. They were all smiling, holding hands under a bright sun. It's beautiful, sweetie. Mommy says we're going to get our own apartment soon. And I'm going to start school again. I'm not scared anymore. Victor looked at Sheila, who nodded. The shelter helped me file for divorce and get a restraining order. With Doug in jail, I can finally breathe. We can finally live. What about the trial? Victor asked quietly, out of Emma's earshot. My lawyer says it might not even go to trial. With all the evidence, the prosecutors think Doug and the others will take plea deals. And if they don't, Sheila's voice hardened. Emma's therapist says she's strong enough to testify if needed. We both are. Victor felt something loosen in his chest. This was what he'd been fighting for. Not vengeance, but freedom for these two people to reclaim their lives. There's something you should know, he said. Doug was attacked in jail. He's alive, but badly hurt. Sheila's expression didn't change. Good. Emma looked up from her drawing. Is Daddy dead? The blunt question hung in the air. Victor knelt down to her level. No, Emma, but he can't hurt you anymore. Ever. I hope he hurts the way he hurt me, she said matter-of-factly, then went back to her coloring. Children, Victor thought, had a clearer sense of justice than most adults. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. 2 months later, the trial of the century began in Grand Rapids. All 23 members of the network were being tried together, an unprecedented legal spectacle. Doug Clark, still recovering from his injuries and walking with a cane, sat at the defense table looking like a ghost of his former self. The prosecution laid out their case with methodical precision, using the evidence Victor had provided. The courtroom filled with gasps and tears as details emerged. Several jurors openly wept. Victor attended every day of the trial, sitting in the back row where Doug could see him. Every time Doug looked his way, Victor held his gaze unflinching. A silent reminder, I did this to you, and I'd do it again. On day 4, a surprise witness took the stand. Byron Holder, father of one of the victims, had something to say. Your Honor, Byron said, his voice shaking with emotion. I want the court to know that my daughter tried to tell someone about the abuse 2 years ago. She told her teacher. The teacher reported it to Principal Margaret Hand, who then contacted Doug Clark directly to resolve the issue quietly. He threatened to sue the school. They backed down. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. Order. That principal is here today, Byron continued, pointing to a woman in the gallery. She knew what was happening and did nothing. She's as guilty as these monsters. Margaret Hand tried to leave, but bailiffs blocked the exits. By the end of the day, she too was under investigation. The revelation opened floodgates. Other parents came forward with similar stories of institutional failure. A pediatrician who'd noticed signs of abuse but was pressured by Dr. Wright to stay quiet. A social worker who'd been intimidated by Judge Pineda into closing a case. The web of complicity was larger than anyone had imagined. On day 8, the defense made a surprise announcement. Doug Clark and 16 others were accepting plea deals in exchange for information about other predators in the network, including international connections. The courtroom erupted again. Victims' families screamed in protest. "They're getting off easy," someone yelled. But the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Hannah Marr, explained that the plea deals meant life sentences without parole, and the information would lead to hundreds more arrests worldwide. "Justice isn't always about the harshest punishment," she said in a press conference later. "It's about protecting future victims. These men will die in prison, but the information they're providing will save countless children." Victor wasn't satisfied, but he understood the logic. Still, he made sure Doug's time in prison would be particularly unpleasant. The information about his crimes had already spread through the prison system like wildfire. Even in maximum security, even in protective custody, he'd never be safe. That evening, Victor received an encrypted email. No sender name, just a message. "The first package has been delivered. The others are in progress. You were right. Some monsters don't deserve trials." Attached was a news article about Judge Lester Pineda. He'd been found dead in his cell that morning, an apparent suicide. But Victor knew better. So did the person who sent the email. He deleted it immediately, cleared his cache, and poured himself a drink. Lydia found him in the study an hour later. "You saw the news about Pineda?" "I did." "Good riddance," she said simply, sitting next to him. "Is that wrong of me to say?" "No," Victor said. "It's honest." She took his hand. "I know what you did, Vic. I know you're the reason all of this came to light. I know you went further than just gathering evidence." "Lydia, I don't need details. I don't want them. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. You saved Emma. You saved Sheila. You probably saved dozens of other children by exposing this network." She squeezed his hand. "Whatever else you did, whatever lines you crossed, you did it for the right reasons. Does that make it okay?" "I don't know," Lydia admitted. "But I know that sometimes good people have to do bad things to stop worse people. And I know my husband is a good man." Victor pulled her close, and for the first time since Christmas Eve, he allowed himself to feel the weight of what he'd done. The lives he destroyed, the rules he'd broken, the blood on his hands, even if he hadn't spilled it directly. But then he thought of Emma's smile, her drawing of the happy family, the way she no longer flinched at shadows. And he knew he'd do it all again. Chapter 9, New Beginnings. 6 months after the trial, Victor stood in front of a small house in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago. Sheila had used the settlement money from her divorce. Doug had been forced to liquidate everything to pay legal fees and restitution, to buy this place for her and Emma. It had a fenced yard, good schools nearby, and most importantly, it was far from Grand Rapids and all its memories. Emma ran out the front door, older now, her hair longer, her eyes brighter. "Uncle Victor, Aunt Lydia, you're here." They'd brought housewarming gifts, plants, kitchen supplies, and a security system Victor had personally installed. He'd never take chances with their safety again. Inside, the house smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Sheila had decorated carefully, creating a space that felt warm and safe. Photos on the wall showed her and Emma smiling. Genuine smiles, not the forced ones from before. "How's the new job?" Lydia asked Sheila as they sat in the living room. "Good. Really good. I'm working at a nonprofit that helps domestic violence survivors. It feels meaningful, like I'm using what I went through to help others." "And Emma's school?" "She loves it. She's made friends. Her therapist says she's making incredible progress." Sheila's eyes welled up. I never thought we'd get here, Vic. I really didn't. There were so many times I thought about. She trailed off, glancing at Emma, who was showing Lydia her room. But you didn't, Victor said firmly. You survived. You both did. Because of you. No. Because you were strong enough to trust someone. That took courage I can't even imagine. Later, as the sun set, Victor found Emma in the backyard, sitting on a swing set. He sat on the swing next to her. Uncle Victor, can I ask you something? Anything, kiddo. Is Daddy really never getting out of prison? Never. I promise. She was quiet for a moment, swinging gently. My therapist says I should forgive him. That holding anger will hurt me. But I don't think I can forgive him. Is that bad? Victor thought carefully about his answer. Emma, forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. You don't owe your father anything. If someday you decide to forgive him for your own peace, that's your choice. But if you never do, that's okay too. What matters is that you don't let what he did define who you become. What do you mean? I mean that you're not a victim, Emma. You're a survivor. You're smart, brave, and kind. Don't let his evil make you bitter or scared. Live your life fully, love people deeply, and be happy. That's the best revenge against people like him. She thought about this, then smiled. I like that. Being happy is revenge. The best kind. As they swung together in comfortable silence, Victor's phone buzzed. A news alert. Former Judge Lester Pineda found dead in prison. Second member of Predator Ring to die in custody. Victor deleted the notification without reading further. He knew what it meant. The network was being dismantled piece by piece, both legally and otherwise. Doug Clark was still alive, but Victor had heard through his contacts that life in maximum security was particularly hellish for him. Daily harassment, isolation, medical issues from his injuries that weren't being adequately treated. He'd lost everything. His wealth, his reputation, his freedom, his health. And still, Victor felt no satisfaction. Just a cold sense of completion. That night, back home, Victor and Lydia lay in bed together. She traced her fingers across his knuckles, which still bore faint scars from his confrontation with Doug. Do you regret it? She asked. Any of it? No, Victor said without hesitation. I sleep better knowing Emma is safe. That other children are safe. That's worth whatever price I had to pay. What about your soul? You used to believe in the law and the system. I still believe in justice. I just learned that sometimes the law and justice aren't the same thing. Lydia was quiet for a moment. Kirk called me today. He said the Michigan State Police want to hire you as a consultant. Help them investigate other predator networks. What did you tell him? That I'd talk to you. We don't do it. Victor considered. He'd left law enforcement to escape the darkness, to find peace. But he'd learned something over the past 6 months. Some people were built to fight monsters. And running from that truth didn't make the monsters disappear. Yeah, he said finally. I think I would. Someone has to protect the kids who can't protect themselves. My hero, Lydia said, kissing him softly. Victor smiled, but in his mind, he wasn't a hero. Heroes worked within the system. They played by the rules. They believed in redemption. He believed in protection, in justice, in making sure that people who hurt children face consequences, in this life or the next. The notification on his phone buzzed again. Another member of the network dead in prison. The message was clear. The monsters were being hunted. And Victor Vance was fine with that. Epilogue,